Thanks very much. I'm Ewen Griffiths. I'm here on behalf of the Oesophagogastric Anastomosis Audit to give you an update, and it's a pleasure to be here today. This is the outline of my talk. I'm going to expose the benefits of the power of collaboration. I'll talk to you about the published papers arising from the project. I want to champion the collaborative authorship model and talk about the future of what we can do. In comparison, single center studies, which have been used in surgery for a long time, do have some significant disadvantages. They often have long time frames. Whilst they can be homogeneous in some ways in terms of selected techniques, their data capture is often retrospective and they have limited publishability. Whereas collaborative, multi-center collaborative studies do have many benefits. That they're often a snapshot. They're heterogeneous is sometimes a strength, as it can be used to compare surgical techniques and outcomes in a natural experiment almost. And because they have a published protocol and the data collection is prospective and each center is using a defined data collection tool, they have excellent publishability, and therefore the collaborative authorship model works really well with surgeons wanting to get involved in these sorts of studies. And this is some data from my own unit in Birmingham. This is our 21 years of resections. And if we wanted to do a similar size project to the AUGIS study using all our esophagectomies, we'd have to have 30 years of data. And clearly that's not a viable study or interesting to other centers. So this is the AUGIS study. We had units from all around the globe submit data to us in Birmingham. And it was a massive project. The data collection period was between April and December 2018. 90-day follow-up took us to about April 2019. There was 2,271 patients included from 140 hospitals, 43 countries, and 673 collaborators. I'm not going to talk a bit about our initial papers, but because we had a network and we wanted to use that, we did do a unit survey, which had some interesting results about what centers were doing. We published our study protocol like a randomized trial would do, and we did that in the diseases of the esophagus. We also used our network to see what was missing in terms of the research avenues of anastomotic leaks, and we published this in Delphi in the British Journal of Surgery this year. Our main results papers have just come out. The overall outcomes has come out in the Annals of Surgery. We're limited to how much we're advertising this, as they haven't quite been on board with the collaborative authorship model. The global outcomes was published in EGSO, which have really embraced the collaborative authorship model, which I'll show you. We have a paper in BGS Open comparing the results from OGA to the Dutch audit and the ECCG esophagectomy group. So this is our main paper published in the Annals of Surgery, reporting the rates of anastomotic complications and their management following esophagectomy. We used the definitions as published by the Don Low group and the esophagectomy complication consensus group. Type 1 being a small defect just treated medically or with dietary treatment. Type 2 needing endoscopic or interventional radiology to deal with it. And type 3 leaks being returned to theatre. The overall leak rate was 14.2%. This dropped to 12.2% when looking at just interthoracic anastomoses, and was as high as 20.1% for neck anastomoses. Chest anastomoses tend to be severer and more likely to need intervention compared to the neck anastomosis. Overall, 7% were type 1 leaks, 3.4 were type 2, and 3.8 required return to theatre. The conjugate necrosis rate overall was 2.7%. Type 1 conjugate necrosis was 1.2%, type 2 0.7%, and type 3 0.8%. And because we had this data, we looked at the correlation between anastomotic leaks and conjugate necrosis, and 15.7% of patients with anastomotic leak had associated conjugate necrosis, and the higher the leak, the higher rate of the conjugate necrosis in terms of its type. The same was also true for conjugate necrosis in relationship to anastomotic leak. If you had a conjugate necrosis, 83.3% were associated with anastomotic leak, and 12.3% of conjugate necrosis had no anastomotic leak. We looked at the different types of leaks and their outcomes, and the increasing severity of the leak was associated with significant rates of return to theatre, length of stay, total ICU stay, reduction in the likelihood of eating and drinking on discharge, readmissions, mortality, both 30 and 90-day mortality increased with the leak severity. What was interesting is we had data on the first, second, and the tertiary management of leaks. And this, we're the first group to really describe this pattern of treatment, and the variation in the treatment algorithms was quite astounding, with a variety of treatments used, and no real pattern to this. And this is all in our annals paper. We used an alluvial flow diagram to look at this in a bit more detail. And this shows that the success rate for primary treatment is around about 69.6%. And patients can move from conservative to type 2 treatment, from conservative to operative treatment, and various other management algorithms can happen. And I think the key is if one treatment's not working, it's entirely right to change it, and try and seal these leaks and treat it appropriately. And we're hoping to work with our colleagues in the tentacle group to come up with guidance on how we might do this. This is our paper in the EGSO. I'm not going to talk about the results in detail, but I just want to highlight that the European Journal of Surgical Oncology really has embraced the collaborative authorship model, and it really is an excellent advertisement for this. In this, we have the authors of the paper in terms of the writing committee clearly identified. The steering committee are also identified separately, and then later on we have national leads, and then the individual site leads, and then I have a short video of all the collaborators, because there's nearly 700 of them, all identified on the paper and all citable on PubMed, which means that we drive future collaborative efforts, and they want to be involved all around the world to be involved in our papers, and I'm sure AUGA 2 will be a great success because of this, this model. We haven't stopped here. We've got further papers either in press or under review. We have a paper on registrar training and outcomes. We've got a paper looking at textbook outcomes. You'll hear in this meeting about our anastomotic techniques and technical factors and outcomes. We're hoping to develop a risk score for anastomotic leak, and we've moved on to doing a chyle leak at Delphi and some practice guidance. Was this a costly project? Well, no, it was actually very cheap, and the University of Birmingham OG Cancer Charity funded our website for £656.74. The trials unit provided REDCap for free. The University of Birmingham sorted out data transfer agreements and open access publishing for free. We used an NHS statistician. So the only other costs were the time and effort of all the team involved and all our collaborators. What does the future hold? Well, we're currently discussing this. We would like to move on to do a randomized trial, and we're discussing this. One of the criticisms of OGA was that units are already submitting to NODCA and also submitting similar data to other studies such as the ECCG. And it might be that we try and do some synchronization to make this easier for our collaborators. One idea for the future is to continue this as a registry and have real-time quality improvement and key performance indicator dashboards. And you can do this with several software suites from either from RStudio or Microsoft. And the aim should be to make all these registries and studies compatible for ease of analysis and ease of combination, and this would increase the power of the studies. We'd welcome anybody who wants to get in touch with us to get involved. Please email us or Twitter or check out our website. And I'd like to thank all members of the steering committee and all members of the national leads and all the collaborators that have made this project a great success.